Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
This is the one and only true sighting I've had, that I can't explain in any other possible way, and that I haven't heard any similar account of. Be me, 5 years ago, just starting to get into conspiracies. Aliens, magic, occult. Entire family getting into different things around similar time. Dad particularly with aliens. Dad wants me and sister to watch Unacknowledged by Greer because he is normie but humor him. Sister's first time seeing it. Few days later. My sister and I are having a cig at night, just watching the sky, joking about how we'd love to see something. Are they biological? Spirits, demons, multidimensional, you know the regular. Go inside after not seeing anything. Go back out later to do the same thing. Start trying to channel or whatever. Nighttime, but moon is out so we can see some clouds. See a cloud start to kind of part and spread out. Bruh, WTF is that? See a tiny red circle go straight up. Out of the cloud, from the lowest part of the horizon. Circle is like pulsating. Seems to go from a deep red to a yellowish orange in no discernible pattern. It keeps rising up, extremely fast. After a few moments, something else starts rising up, trailing the red circle. It's black. So black we can see it against the night sky. Shitty pic related. It keeps raising from behind this cloud, and keeps raising, and keeps raising. This thing is massive. Eventually, it is fully out of the cloud, still trailing the red circle. As they both fly straight up into the sky. This thing was so far away. Yet if I held my hand out as far away as possible, and used my fingers to try to measure it, my fingers would be probably 3 or 4 inches apart. It had to be massive, football fields long. Hard to judge distance from that far. But this thing wasn't a normal shape. It was an obelisk almost, pointed at the top and bottom. Looked like the sky was a canvas and you took a knife and slit through the night sky. But it was moving. There were tendrils. These things were attached to the main body, but were moving, wiggling in the air. Looked almost like wisps of smoke, smoky tentacles. Sister tries talking to me, and on what is this? Shush her. For fear of us, 1, ruining the moment, 2, altering each other's memories by some form of bias. And the most important, 3, to test us later to see if this is a dual hallucination of sorts. Things rise up at a super fast pace. They look to be roughly 3 times higher than other planes actively in the sky. Time seemed to go so slow. With our adrenaline pumping, but they were raising up so fast. It probably took not 10 seconds for them to go higher than anything we've ever seen. They stop. They sit in the air. If the tendril beast was 4 inches long in the sky, there was a 1-inch gap between it and the red circle. They take off. They are coming at us. We see this thing coming. As it gets closer, our emotions become more and more ramped up. We are frozen still. Not saying any words, holding hands. It is so fast. It was so far away. And like that it was over us. When it reaches directly overhead, our emotions are peaking, feel so much awe, shock, paralysis. We can see the red circle as it passes over us. It's a sphere. Looks like plasma. Had no solid shape, just morphing in and out of itself. Can now see there is almost a green hue to it occasionally as well. Shifting from red, orange, yellow, green. As it was coming towards us, we could see the tendril beast, as it is directly over us. We cannot see it like we could see the red circle, as it goes over our head. Away from us, we see it phase back into reality, appearing at the tip, then the rest following, etc. We stand and watch as the red circle and the tendril beast get so far away we can't see them. Again, time was slow, but I'd wager from it going standstill to crossing our entire view took less than 30 seconds. We sit for a few minutes, not saying a word. Go inside. Sister starts talking, tell her to shut up. Grab a piece of paper. Tell sister to wait, and I draw. I draw exactly what I saw. I write the steps in which I saw them. Clouds moving, red circle appears, giant gash into sky appears. Hovers, flies over us, etc. Rip the sheet out, fold and put in pocket. Give notebook to sister. Tell her to draw what she saw and the steps of what happened. She does this. Comes back and I get out my piece of paper. At the same time, we lay them on the table. We both drew and documented the exact same things. She asks why I was so worried about talking. Explain my rationale of not wanting to change each other's memories. Worries of dual hallucinations, etc. We are spooked but feel this strange calmness as well. Feel like we were meant to see it, but have no idea why. Sister, okay, this was massive. There have to be reports or similar sightings. Check Mutual UFO Network and other places, looking for past notices or reports of similar things. Can't find anything. Tell Dad and my GF. They both think we are both kooks. To this day, have not heard of anything similar from anyone else. Sister doesn't like to talk about it these days. So anons, that is my story. I have no idea what we saw, why we were able to see it, what any of it was. Feel free to ask any questions. I will answer what I can. I'm at GF's now. But we'll look for the piece of paper with my drawing when I get home if the thread is still alive. Anyone else have any UFO interactions?
Be my grandfather. Mother needs to be picked up on the other side of town one night in the 90s when she was young. He gets in his car and leaves to go get her. Comes back, pulls in driveway. Car engine shuts off. Massive aura of light appears over his vehicle and lights up the ground around the car. Trying and trying, but car still won't start. White dots start appearing everywhere, on the dash. The seats, everywhere inside the car. Like a disco sort of. To me it seems like some sort of sken. Pop was pissing himself in laughter because he didn't have a clue what was going on and thought the whole situation was funny. Wasn't even afraid, because at the moment he didn't think it was anything extraordinary. Light fades and goes away. Car is able to start again. Grandmother was watching from the window and said it looked like a spaceship. Still amazes me every time he tells it over the beer.
Where and when was this? Anon.
Sometime in the early 90s. Not sure the exact year, and right here where I'm at right now. I still live with my grandparents in their house, as do my parents, because this house is kind of like a 2-story apartment. I'm only 20 years old. If you meant by actual location, I'm from central Newfoundland, Canada. Not even really a hotspot for UFO sightings. There is one famous one from a cop in Clairville back in the 60s.
So Close Encounters of the Third Kind and the X-Files were spot on.
Yeah, blew my mind when he first told the story, and I never even seen the X-Files. The most interesting part about it though that I haven't heard from another story are the white dots, and how they were moving around inside the car like a disco.
How big were they? What color? In the house or outside? You should. I'm thoroughly convinced that Chris Carter was read into actual black budget shit and other CIA level phenomena.
First one was last October. Me and my brother went outside one night to smoke a joint. As we went out and turned to the right towards the neighboring garden, we both saw a bright amber-colored orb floating above a birch tree. As soon as we caught eye of it, it started to move out of sight around the corner of our house. Never seen it afterwards. Looked like it was about the size of a bowling ball or basketball, hard to tell from distance. And then yesterday morning I went outside at around 4:50 a.m., just before the sun broke the horizon. As I was walking by the car in my garden and I saw in the corner of my eye a pure white ball zoom by the car, did a little swirl and went up over the garage about 15 to 20 feet from me. Note that there was no wind whatsoever. And it had an unnatural white glow to it too. It wasn't dimmed by the early morning, but the thing is, it was really small compared to the first one I saw. Like only an inch or 2 in diameter. We have no fireflies here, so I don't know what else it could have been. It amazed me though and felt really positive seeing it. TLDR, first one was bright amber and the size of a bowling or basketball. Second was only an inch or 2 in size and pure white. Forgot to mention it was only 3 or 4 feet from me when I first saw the small one. Then it zoomed up over the garage.
This afternoon I saw the strangest thing I have ever seen in my life. I've spent the last several hours trying to understand what I saw, but I can't come up with any reasonable explanation in the context of science as I know it. It was my cousin's wedding, and afterwards me and my other cousin went to the beach. At that time it was around 5 p.m. and the sun was setting. As we're just chilling, sitting down and chatting, I happened to look up at the sky for whatever reason. I see what appears to be an airplane cruising at a speed that any ordinary aircraft would travel at. The aircraft flashed every few seconds, congruent again like any other aircraft. This wasn't salient enough to cause me to stare at it. Instead, I was just taking in the view of the rest of the sky. I noticed a few moments later that the aircraft just stopped moving. It was dead still. I thought, okay, it must be a helicopter or a drone or something. Again, At this time, I still didn't think anything of it. Probably 10 to 15 seconds later, it took off into the horizon at speed so fast it almost seemed like someone was pointing a laser at a wall and suddenly pointed it in another direction. There was no build-up, no sound, no anticipation of anything that would indicate a takeoff of some sorts. There was no trail behind it. It simply took off into the horizon. I can't even estimate the speed of which it took off. That's how fast it went. I know I'm not crazy because my cousin saw it as well. We both looked at each other at the same time and said, "What was that? Has anyone seen anything like this before?" I know for certain this couldn't have been a drone, airplane, or helicopter. I'm a pretty rational guy and don't yell aliens when I don't understand something, but this has really got me thinking that perhaps UFOs in the true meaning of the word are actually real. Either that, or there's some military technology that I'm not aware of.
The brother of my cousin's wife works on a submarine in Portugal. It's 2003. During the Christmas holidays, I was with him and my cousin drinking with some other family members. I make a joke about the Kraken eating his submarine or something. He says they often see/hear strange things. Starts telling us about detecting many fast-moving objects around their submarines when they would be in certain places in the Atlantic. I think he said near Azores Islands. No one knew what it was. Never debriefed about it. A few years later, he was on a NATO joint exercise, and after the operation they were drinking with the other submarine guys. Everyone had the same stories about being tracked by stuff underwater, and some said they saw orb-like objects on the surface. Said the rumor between the sailors and submarine crews was that there was some kind of base under the water. At the time, no one had ever heard of UFOs being near water and being able to go underwater, so I didn't think much of it. I mostly forgot this until 2 years ago when most of the UFO stuff started becoming more mainstream. I talked to my cousin the other day and he remembers it too, but he hasn't spoken to his submarine friend in 10 years or so now.
The true nature of this incident lies somewhere cloistered deep and dark in the trauma vaults of my subconscious.
I saw them as a child too. Very odd.
Would you mind sharing a rough sketch followed by a bit of dialogue or descriptors?
It's very hard even for me to remember back almost over 20 years. A sketch wouldn't do much, besides confirm yours. Mine was about the same, perhaps short. My sister and I went to the spray park for the first time. It was hot, and we lived in a bad neighborhood. It wasn't far, and our mother was supposed to come too but didn't. I have memories of interacting with other children there, them being odd but nice. They left, and somewhere along the way there were red lights. I know exactly what you mean about memory. They seem to affect consciousness. I can't rule out red orbs. It felt like they were playing with them somehow. But I can't remember fully. Definitely not spacecraft-sized. On the walk back is where my sister and my memory converge. On the walk home, there was a T-shaped alley, with us at the tip of the T, so to speak. I stopped dead in my tracks. At the end of the alley, in front of fence, is a little gray standing there. I stopped. Even being young, I knew if I said it was an alien, my sister would see an alien. So and just as casually asked her what it was. Her shriek was enough to let me know it was real. She wanted to run home. I stood, perplexed. I knew what I saw before me and wanted to see more. We began walking towards it, slowly at first. We made it nearly halfway down the alley when it came into view. There was a wooden box built, stained and fashioned in the same manner as the fence, with gray garbage cans behind it. Oh, okay, it was just an optical illusion, and the whole time I mistook it. Turn to leave, I see my sister still in shock, so I snap out of it. Trash bin no longer looks vaguely like alien, and instead is almost completely different. Ask sister what she sees, alien still. Decide to man up and get closer. She hides behind me. I step closer and an ear-piercing scream came out of nowhere. Sis and I both hear and dart. We're not out of the alley before we began walking and chuckled it off as a can and agree to never speak of it. Not even thinking about all the discrepancies or oddities that day.
I want to thank you and commemorate you for your bravery for sharing that experience. It is not easy to describe something so sensitive.
I now frequently see ships. Not now as an adult, but this year really. Never saw much, but did become fascinated with eyes after this event. Never remembered it till messing with mushrooms in 2020. I recalled it post-trip and was horrified. Unlike trauma I uncovered on trip, this was unexplainable, and forgotten in the same manner. I immediately knew I must ask sis. Since even back in that moment, I knew leading on with aliens would trigger that exact response. I paused and planned. Next I saw her. I asked about the first time we went to the outdoor spray park alone. The streets were dead that day. It was an incredibly hot week, and the only other time I've seen the streets so dead was back in 2020 around when I remembered this. She of course remembers the eye, but or the kids, or has extremely vague memories of them. None of the park or day in general though. Since I've come to realize the Pleiades played a huge role in my ancestors' beliefs. I'm leaning into that a lot. The crafts I see now vary tremendously. First was a black orb, middle of the night luckily through binoculars. Moved unlike a satellite. Really bugged me. I'd never known what it was. Then I started seeing more. Roommates too. Glowing orbs, way up high, too odd to be satellites unless we're deploying radically new. And secret tech. Which is possible, as in November for 2 weeks straight I saw a black triangle craft above my 100K Canadian city. Almost every night, but not quite. Once during the day, I filmed. If you've ever tried to film a UFO you know it's actually incredibly hard. Just try taking a pic of the moon, or a vid of a far-up plane. If I may, where do you live where you see so many? Urban or rural? The gray was in a city of million in Alberta, one of the two. Edmonton. The other is in the fourth biggest city, Red Deer. About 100K but lots of rural surrounding areas and towns. In between a small town to the north of about 10K is where my family and I saw the first portal craft last week. Mum's seen 2 around town since. Wouldn't have believed it if I didn't make her pull over last Sunday and watch the first one. Says she's seen odd trails like that from planes recently but never saw. I actually saw a week before on a FB group for the town north. A picture of what appeared to be a cloud catching light weird, landing tie the perception of it being a portal. Very reminiscent of what we did see. Black triangles have been around Red Deer. I've been spooked to post about it with the exact town because they might be United Nation, but at this point they don't frighten me anymore. I've talked to locals now who have seen incredible things like this over the years here. In Red Deer, I saw the black orb from my backyard here, and I was doing a bit of CE5 light. I wasn't following instructions. I never have well anyway and prefer the creative route. Just as I'd make an offering to spirits, or my ancestors in my indigenous teachings. I gently let my intention be known. Watching with, or interacting with extraterrestrials. Then slowly just scan the skies with an open heart. Despite the good intentions, it still shook me for a week. The triangle craft didn't do this, they would have, but I was seeing them every day. The first glimpse I got directly under at the park was so moving I nearly vomited. Straight out of X-Files. I am fully willing to concede the black orb up in space as a satellite or something I misinterpreted because I was going into it for that. The black triangles appeared in the day once, and I was put early. Only one, most I saw at once was 2, possibly 3, but I was still excited to see one in a day. I could film. While it looks odd, it's not too dissimilar in my video from a plane to be noteworthy. I should note here since I didn't describe it good enough originally. These black triangular craft had lights on all 3 points like a plane, but underneath. And sometimes on top as well. Sometimes in the middle. In the light, it was very obvious it was a flare triangle bottom. Sadly, once again, another blurry picture to maybe capture the moment, and show loved ones, but nothing I could show anyone to convince them. This was around the time of the lunar eclipse last year. And I used binoculars from the black orb story to capture good macros of the moon during it. The triangle moved too fast to get good, but I might have got the video through it even. I just remember it felt futile. Their binoculars did make it more visible for me, not my S8, so after my little proof, I watched with faded eyes. I never saw it this early and this light out. I had to watch it more. They always maneuvered so fast. Leaving southeast of our city towards the town to the north, incredible speeds, all silent. 1 or 2 incredible stunts I saw, such as insane temporary boosts. Or quick almost 60-degree turns. Tons of hovering over an area. Last April there was old bombers on the sky too. I talked about them, and sounded schizo to the spiritual blind on purpose by choice roommate. Yet he ate his words when we saw it together. Literally said he knew what it felt now, and he couldn't even tell others about it. It was just a plane then. I like to imagine if he stuck around and saw what's above us now.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.